You should put the deed to your $2 million condo in my name. I'm the one with a family now. You're nothing without us." That was what Lily shouted across the table at the anniversary dinner. 30 years of marriage my parents had managed to celebrate, and somehow the night turned into a public trial against me. She slammed a blue folder onto the table. The copies of my property deed slid out, the notary stamp glinting under the chandelier. Glasses rattled, forks froze midair. I sat there, my hands tight around my napkin. No one defended me. Not one word. The laughter started, the kind that comes when people pretend it is all in good fun but mean every syllable. I live alone. Most nights are quiet. The hum of the refrigerator and the sound of my shoes by the door are the only companions. On my desk at home sits a small ring of keys, my car, my condo, and the mailbox. Keys nobody ever asks about because nobody cares. Here at this expensive restaurant, I was pushed to the side. They put me near the service door where waiters slipped in and out with plates of steak and scallops. I could smell bleach from the kitchen floor. Meanwhile, the rest of my family raised their glasses to Lily, as though she had made some grand point. "Family helps family," my father added, tipping his glass toward her. "And family without children should remember where the real future lies." I forced a smile, though my stomach turned. I told myself to breathe, to keep my face calm. They wanted me flustered. They wanted me small. But what they didn't know was that I had already started keeping every message, every email, every slip of paper where their intentions leaked through. I had them in my own folder back at home. Tonight would not be forgotten. It would be preserved. I could feel the weight of humiliation pressing down the betrayal, sharp as broken glass. My sister's voice rang louder than the clinking of glasses. "You'll never use that place the way we could. Give it up." For a moment, the restaurant seemed to shrink. The polished wood, the red velvet chairs, the waiters who glanced sideways, all of it framed my place as the invisible one. They had the spotlight, and I had the shadows. I swallowed, said nothing, and let the moment carve itself into memory, because sometimes silence holds more power than an argument. I will explain more in a moment. But first, tell me where you are watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Families and money can turn into war, and what happened after this dinner will show you just how far betrayal can go. After the dinner plates were cleared, the pressure began. It was no longer masked with champagne toasts or nervous laughter. It came sharp and deliberate, like knives being set one by one on the table. Mother leaned forward first, her voice soft but cutting. "If you care about your sister, you'll think about her future. A child needs stability. A family needs a home. You can't keep everything to yourself." Her words were rehearsed, I could tell. She had been waiting for the moment. My father nodded, tapping the rim of his glass with a spoon, as though to seal her sentence like a signature. Lily pressed the blue folder closer to me. "It's not complicated. Sign over the deed, let us raise our baby in your condo, and you can move somewhere smaller. You don't need 3 bedrooms for just you." The way she said "just you" burned worse than anything else, as if living alone erased my worth. I stayed silent, studying the notary stamp. I had touched it myself when I signed the purchase papers 2 years ago. Every dollar of that down payment came from my savings, years of working double hours, eating takeout on office nights, and skipping vacations. And now here it was, treated like a spare trinket that could be handed away. Then came the shock that twisted my stomach. Father slipped a folded sheet across the table. His eyes did not meet mine. "If you don't help, there is another way. Read it." I opened the paper. It was an email printed in black and white. The subject line read Plan B, and the words cut deeper than any insult Lily had shouted. "Terminate the pregnancy if deed is not secured." I felt the air leave my lungs. My sister, who had paraded her news as though it were the crown jewel of the evening, had reduced the unborn child to a bargaining chip. And my parents had not only known, they had preserved the evidence. Lily smirked when she saw my face. "We're serious. This isn't a game. You want to be the reason a child never sees daylight, or are you ready to sign like a responsible sibling?" It was betrayal, layered on betrayal. First the public humiliation, now a threat dressed as family duty. Around us the restaurant had thinned out, but I felt as though the whole world was still watching. I put the paper back in the folder, closed it neatly, and slid it back across the table. My voice was steady, though every nerve in my body screamed. I don't make decisions under blackmail. The silence that followed was heavier than the music drifting from the grand piano in the corner. For a flicker of a moment, I thought I saw doubt cross my father's face. But then Lily laughed a brittle sound. and Mother raised her glass again. "You'll think about it," she said. "You always do." I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because that was the night I decided, if they wanted to fight for what I had built, I would fight back in a way they could not expect. But that comes later. The following week I tried to keep my life steady. Work gym quiet evenings. I told myself that if I ignored their demands long enough, the noise would fade. Families tire of drama, don't they? At least that's what I wanted to believe. But it did not fade. It grew. It started with a post on Facebook. My future brother-in-law Mark had written late at night, soon living in a $2 million condo for free. Hard work pays off, right? He added a photo of a glass of wine, captioned with 3 laughing emojis. I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. Friends from my office began to send me screenshots. Some even tagged me beneath the post asking if it was a joke. It wasn't just online words. By the next morning, a video surfaced on TikTok. Someone at the anniversary dinner had recorded the moment. Lily slammed the folder onto the table, her voice sharp and clear. "You're nothing without us." The clip spread fast, played over with trending audio, shared by strangers who knew nothing of me, but laughed anyway. At the office, cafeteria whispers followed me like shadows. Colleagues smiled too kindly, their eyes filled with pity. One leaned over my table and murmured, "Don't let it get to you. Families are complicated." As if I didn't already know. Every time I opened my phone there, it was my humiliation packaged as content. Viral. But what they didn't know was that I had my own collection of content. Saved emails, text messages, every cruel remark written instead of spoken. Evidence they thought would never leave private circles. I kept those in a folder tucked deep inside my desk drawer. The betrayal sank deeper when my own parents chimed in. My mother liked Mark's post. My father left a comment beneath the viral video. Family matters are private. People shouldn't judge. But yes, she needs to share. He didn't even bother to use my name. I felt stripped bare, as though I had no place left to stand. Friends stopped calling, unsure what to say. Even my neighbors, who had always waved when I parked my car, avoided my eyes. One evening, I received a text from Lily herself. "Hope you're enjoying your fame. This could all end if you sign." She followed it with a winking emoji. I gripped my phone so hard I thought the glass might shatter. Humiliation, betrayal, and now the world as witness. But I didn't argue back. Not yet. Instead, I closed the curtains, sat in the quiet of my condo, and let the humiliation simmer into something harder, something colder. Because sometimes revenge doesn't need a shout. It only needs patience. And that patience was about to pay off. When the noise became unbearable, I did something my family never expected. I went silent. Not the silence of shame, but the kind that listens, gathers, and sharpens. I stopped answering Lily's texts. I left my parents' calls to voicemail. Mark's smug posts kept spreading online, yet I gave them nothing back, because while they were busy chasing attention, I was collecting ammunition. Every scrap of paper, every screenshot, every forwarded email, I kept them neatly sorted in a thick folder with a red clip, the kind of folder lawyers respect more than family dinners. On a cold Monday morning, I walked into a downtown office. Heavy oak doors, polished brass plaque, the faint smell of paper and ink. My attorney, a woman named Miss Playshin, Harrison, sat across from me in a navy suit, eyes sharp behind her glasses. "Tell me everything," she said. I laid the folder on her desk, one document at a time. The anniversary dinner video. The printed email titled Plan B text from Lily, threatening to make the baby disappear if I didn't comply. Screenshots of Mark bragging about my condo as though it were already his, each page heavier than the last. When I finished, Miss Harrison leaned back, steepling her fingers. "You don't fight them with anger," she said quietly. "You fight with paperwork." Her words steadied me. She outlined a plan. File for a protective order on my property. Notify the housing board in case of false claims. Prepare evidence in the event they attempted legal pressure. And most importantly, do nothing yet. Let them reveal themselves further. Walking out of her office, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. But control is not the same as peace. Because the humiliation did not stop. At a family gathering I skipped, Lily made a speech about how selfish siblings ruin families. Someone sent me the video. My parents clapped in the background. At work, a colleague whispered that my name had become shorthand for stinginess. Don't be an Alex, they joked when someone refused to split a bill. The betrayal reached every corner of my life, but instead of drowning, I let it harden, like a river freezing over cold but unbreakable. One night, as I flipped through the folder at my kitchen table, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A voice I recognized instantly, Mark. You're making this harder than it has to be, he said. We're moving in one way or another. Better you make it easy. I didn't reply. I let the silence stretch until he hung up. Then I slipped my phone into the folder, hit record, and waited. Because patience was my weapon now. And soon they would find out just how sharp silence can be. Death has a way of pulling families together or tearing them further apart. In my case, it did both. My Aunt Margaret passed quietly, leaving behind an estate that had been the quiet envy of the family for decades. A grand colonial house in Connecticut, sprawling lawns and whispers of an inheritance no one ever discussed aloud, but everyone dreamed about. When the notice came for the will reading, my parents called as though nothing had happened, as though the viral humiliation, the printed threats, the endless pressure to surrender my condo had all been a misunderstanding. We should all go together, my mother said. Family ought to arrive united. I arrived alone. The law office was heavy with silence, the kind that presses down on your chest. Dark wood paneling shelves of leather-bound books, the faint tick of an antique clock. Lily sat across the room with Mark, her hand resting on her stomach, her lips curled in a victorious half-smile. My parents whispered to one another, their eyes bright with expectation. I kept my gaze on the window, the winter sky gray and restless. Then the lawyer entered. Miss Harrison, my own attorney, was already seated beside me. She gave me the smallest nod, a reminder of the plan we had set in motion weeks before. The reading began. Names, bequests, formal language rolling off the lawyer's tongue. A cousin received a watch. A distant nephew some bonds. And then the pause, the kind that pulls every heartbeat into one room. To my niece's child Lily, the lawyer read, I leave nothing. To my brother and his wife, nothing. To my niece Alex, I leave the entirety of my estate valued at $3.2 million, including the house, the land, and all associated accounts. The silence that followed was a thunderclap. My mother's jaw went slack. My father blinked as though struck. Mark muttered something low and ugly under his breath. And Lily's smile cracked her face, drained of color, her hand slipping from her stomach to grip the arm of her chair. I sat very still. Inside my chest burned with the weight of justice. The lawyer continued, but no one heard the rest. Their shock filled the room. I turned, finally letting my eyes meet Lily's. Remember when you told me I was nothing? I said softly, so only those nearest could hear. Tell me now which one of us is really nothing. Her lips parted, but no words came. For once the laughter was gone, the smirks, the arrogance, the endless demands gone. All that remained was silence thick and suffocating, and the knowledge that the game they thought they were winning had ended with a single sentence from a will. I gathered my folder, the same one Lily had once tried to use against me, and stood. Because sometimes revenge doesn't need fire. Sometimes it arrives wrapped in legal parchment, signed and sealed with ink. And that day, revenge was mine. We left the law office in silence. My family avoided my eyes. Their shoes scuffed the polished floor, as if they were children caught stealing. Outside, the winter air felt sharper, brighter. I pulled my coat tighter and walked ahead. They didn't follow. But the story didn't end with a will. 2 days later, I received another message from Mark. You think this changes anything? People still believe the condo is ours. Paperwork doesn't matter if the public is on our side. He added a smirking photo of himself, standing outside my building, arms crossed, like a conqueror. That was his mistake. I had been patient long enough. It was time to let the world see the truth and let them choke on it. First, I released the rental agreement I had drawn up months earlier. It was simple. Lily and Mark had begged to stay in my condo at a reduced rate until they got on their feet. Their signatures were clear at the bottom. I sent the document to a local journalist I trusted, along with screenshots of Mark's mocking posts. By the next morning, headlines appeared, couple claims luxury condo, but signed reduced rent agreement. The photos of their smug faces, paired with their own words, spread across the same feeds where they had once humiliated me. The backlash was instant. Comments flooded in. Scammers. Entitled freeloaders. How do people live with themselves? The laughter that had once targeted me now turned against them. But I wasn't finished. I released the email Plan B. People saw in black and white how my sister had used her unborn child as leverage. That message spread faster than the condo story, igniting outrage far beyond our town. Even strangers who had once mocked me now sent messages of support. Lily tried to defend herself, claiming the email was taken out of context. But the damage was done. The internet does not forgive easily, and it never forgets. At work, colleagues who had pitied me now walked up with quiet respect. One man who had laughed at the viral video weeks before placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "You handled this better than most would have. You waited. You hit back with facts." Meanwhile, Lily's social media accounts went dark. Mark's business partners pulled out of deals. Friends stopped returning their calls. My parents stayed silent, as though disappearing could erase their part in it. But the real blow came a week later. Someone leaked a private family group chat. In it, my parents had written things I never imagined they would say about me. Lines like, "If Alex won't give us the condo, maybe we can force them to leave town." Or worse, "They owe us for everything we've ever given." That leak sealed their fate. People who once excused them now turned away. Neighbors avoided them. The same church pews, where they had bragged about family values, now stood empty when they arrived. I didn't post a single word in response. I didn't have to. Revenge had already unfolded, not through shouting, not through fights in restaurants, but through the cold, undeniable weight of evidence. And when I walked past my condo lobby mirror that night, I saw something I hadn't seen in months, myself steady and unbroken. The storm had shifted, and for the first time I could breathe. When betrayal becomes public, it does more damage than any private argument ever could, and that's exactly what happened to them. Within weeks, Lily and Mark's names became poison. Mark's brokerage license was suspended after clients pulled out, citing unethical behavior. His photo arms crossed outside my condo was reposted in every article that called him a fraud. No one wanted to hire a man known more for entitlement than hard work. Lily tried to salvage sympathy by posting about her pregnancy, but comments turned savage. "Using a baby as a bargaining chip," one wrote. "Disgusting." Another added, "That child deserves better parents." She deleted her account within hours, but screenshots never vanish. As for my parents, the group chat leak was the end of their carefully polished image. Neighbors who once waved across hedges now shut their blinds. At church, whispers followed them to their pew, until finally they stopped attending altogether. Their circle of friends, built on decades of reputation, shrank to nothing. I did not lift a finger. The collapse was theirs alone, a house of cards crumbling under the weight of their own arrogance. But it wasn't only reputation they lost. Bills piled up. Without my quiet help, the rent money I had once covered, the grocery cash slipped discreetly into envelopes. They felt the strain of reality. My father called once, his voice low, asking if we could start fresh. I listened in silence until he stopped talking. Then I ended the call. Because forgiveness isn't a currency you can demand when your debts are exposed. Lily tried one last time. She arrived at my building unannounced, standing in the lobby with a suitcase. "We've lost everything," she said, eyes swollen from tears. "Just let us stay, only until the baby comes." The doorman looked at me, waiting for my answer. I shook my head. "This isn't my problem anymore." She whispered, "You're heartless." I almost laughed. Heartless after everything. No, heartless was what they had been when they mocked me in public, when they printed threats, when they traded blood for property. As she walked out, dragging her suitcase across the marble floor, I felt no triumph, just clarity. Families collapse not from storms outside, but from rot within. All it takes is time for the cracks to show. And theirs had split wide open. When the dust settled, I was left with silence. Not the cold silence of humiliation, but the calm that comes when storms finally pass. I sat one evening in my condo, looking out over the city. The lights flickered in windows across the skyline, each one a small story of its own. Mine had been loud, messy, dragged into the open for strangers to gawk at. Yet here I was still standing, while those who mocked me had crumbled under their own weight. The estate in Connecticut became mine in name, though I didn't rush to move in. I walked through its wide halls, once ran my fingers along the carved banisters, breathed the air heavy with history. But it was the condo with its 3 bedrooms and the hum of the fridge in the night that still felt like home. A home I had earned. People sometimes ask if I regret not forgiving them, not letting them back in. I don't. Forgiveness, I've learned, is not a door you open just because someone knocks. It's something earned, and they never even tried. My parents live quieter now, away from curious eyes. Lily and Mark moved to another town chasing work no one wants to give them. I hear whispers, arguments in parking lots, debts they can't pay doors, that close when they arrive. Their collapse is their own, and I don't need to add to it. As for me, I live in peace. I walk to the market on Saturdays. I brew coffee in the morning. I work without the constant weight of family demands. My life is smaller than the storm they created, but it is mine. Entirely mine. And sometimes when I think back to that night at the anniversary dinner, Lily slamming the folder, my parents laughing, while I sat by the service door, I realize something. They thought I was invisible. They thought I was nothing. But in the end, it was their greed, their arrogance, their betrayal that made them vanish. Blood ties can bind, yes, but greed can sever more quickly than any blade. So tell me if you think I made the right choice, comment right. If you would have handled the family differently, share your idea below. Because families and money, that story never really ends.